Apart from the blockbuster politics of the country, the rising mercury in recent days has also been the talk of the town. The summer heat this time has been so relentless that it has registered record-breaking temperatures in a number of districts, especially in the southern plains. An unprecedented number of schools have also been closed to save our children from the scorching heat. With rain forecast from coming Sunday, we can welcome cooler rainy days with much respite. Good evening, I'm Amar Singh Pradhan and these are the headlines of the hour. Water scarcity reported from across the country due to prolonged dry spell. 74% local water resources dry up. Churi region hardest hit. Brainstorming rife over making marijuana farming legal as the government allocates budget for marijuana study. Demand to live banned considering medicinal value. The Southeast Asian bloc ASEAN to hold its first ever joint military drill in the South China Sea at a time of rising tension and uncertainty in the region. And domestic top flight turns topsy-turvy for Kumultar as they are relegated after their debut season at the Martyrs Memorial A-Division League. Friends avert relegation. In the face of a prolonged dry spell, the water scarcity crisis has surfaced in a number of districts across the country. With a change in weather patterns coupled with deforestation, haphazard urbanization, floods and landslides, a study has shown that 74% of water resources has dried up at local level. Churi region is the hardest hit with about 79%, followed by Himalayan region where water sources depletion has occurred about 64%, while the mountain region has registered 46%. This deep boring located at Janakpur Dham's Ganga Sarovar dried up a week ago. The boring water was extracted after digging about 700 feet. However, the deep boring has dried up, causing massive discomfort to the local people. Hundreds of people from the vicinity and the adjoining areas were dependent on the water from this boring site. Likewise, water in the 3 hand pumps at Bara headquarter Kalaiya has also dried up. With the prolonged dry spell, majority of water sources in the Churi region has also dried up as the mercury has crossed 42 degrees Celsius. Meanwhile, a number of factors including climate change, haphazard urbanization, deforestation, extraction of minerals from Churi region, floods and landslides are attributed to the current scenario. Despite increasing scarcity of water, the local levels and the provincial governments have not been able to prioritize the conservation of traditional sources of water. And in this context, in our Public Voice segment, we have asked people in several provinces what should be done to save water sources that have been drying up due to impacts of climate change and rise in population. Let's take a look at what they have to say.
Public Voice.
पानीको मुहानहरुमा जुन डोजरहरु चलाउँदै आएको छ अहिले राज्यले त्यस्तो कामहरु रोक्नु पर्दछ
खाली जमिनहरुमा यो संरचनाहरु सिमेन्टेड गर्ने काम नगर्ने
बाटोघाटो निर्माण गर्दाखेरि कोअर्डिनेसन हुन पर्यो
फोहोर मैला ती प्लास्टिक जन्य वस्तुहरु तिनलाई कन्ट्रोल गर्ने व्यवस्थित गर्ने
पुराना पोखरी कुवा पानीहरु कुवा धाराहरुलाई संरक्षण गर्ने
घर घरमा ठुलो बोरिङहरु गाड्दै गएका छन् त्यसो हुँदाखेरि तल पानीको स्रोतहरु घटेर पानीको समस्या भइरहेको छ
प्लानिङ भइराछ नि बस्तीहरु बसिराछ यसलाई चाहिँ रोक्नु पर्ने
मूलहरुलाई संरक्षण गर्नुपर्छ
पर्यावरणको सुरक्षा हुनु
दाउरा काट राखेको पनि काटेको ठाउँमा पुनः वृक्षारोपण गर्नुपर्छ भनी जनचेतना जगाउनु पर्छ
बोट बिरुवा वनस्पतिहरु छन् तिनको संरक्षण गर्नु पर्यो
सिमसार क्षेत्रहरुलाई संरक्षण गर्न केही अभियानहरु सञ्चालन गर्ने
पानीको मुहान वरिपरि भएको चाहिँ रुख बिरुवाहरुलाई कटानी गर्नु भएन
सुक्दै गएको नदी नालालाई उचित व्यवस्था गर्नुपर्छ
वृक्षारोपणका अभियानहरु सञ्चालन गर्नु पर्यो
पर्यावरणलाई हामीले जोगाउने कार्यक्रमहरु ल्याउनु पर्छ
वृक्षारोपणमा विशेष जोड दिन पर्छ
वन जंगलमा आगलागी भइरहेको छ हैन आगलागीलाई नियन्त्रण गर्नु पर्यो
वन जंगल मास्नु भएन
वृक्षारोपणहरु चाहिँ गर्नु पर्यो
अवैध उत्खनन बन्द गर्नु पर्यो
जलवायु परिवर्तन हुने कुनै पनि कार्य गर्नु भएन
The government is all poised to introduce work modality to validate marijuana farming for medicinal purpose. The government has even allocated budget in the new fiscal for the study of marijuana. Lawmakers and right activists have demanded that the ban imposed on marijuana farming should be lifted and pave way for its export. The United Nations Convention in March 1961 had endorsed the single convention on narcotic drug that led to the banning of marijuana as contraband drug. After signing the protocol in 1976, Nepal also adopted rules on contraband drugs. The regulation has been amended on 5 occasions as it considers marijuana farming, its storage, consumption and sale as illegal, liable for punishment. Since its farming is illegal, security officials reached different districts to destroy marijuana farming. Meanwhile, United Nations towards the end of the year 2020 lifted the harmful tag from marijuana, considering that it possessed qualities to treat different ailments. This led to the new debate of lifting the ban on marijuana in Nepal as well. The voice has been raised from various quarters, including the parliament. Despite the existing ban, marijuana farming is carried out in a number of places, while the climate in Makwanpur, Bara, Parsa and hill districts in western Nepal are considered fertile for its farming. Politicians in Makwanpur had even sloganeered to lift the ban on its farming in the recent election as a way to woo the voters. And now time for our segment Public Pulse, where it texts us with their opinion.
Public Pulse.
And before we give you today's question, let's take a look at a response to yesterday's question. And yesterday we had asked you, what should be done to make the Visit Decade campaign a success? 55% voted for option A, expand infrastructures. 11% voted for option B, identify new destinations. And 34% voted for option C, more publicity. And that brings us to today's question. The question is, what's your take on giving validity to marijuana farming? Your options are option A, threat of misuse, option B, essential for medicine, and option C, a way of income generation. The voting is on. Type NAWS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share opinion with us. And it's now time for international update. The Southeast Asian bloc ASEAN will hold its first ever joint military exercise in the South China Sea, the latest multilateral security drills at a time of rising tension and uncertainty in the region. Decision was taken at a meeting of military commanders of the 10-member Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, in Indonesia, which will host the exercise in the North Natuna Sea, the southernmost waters of the South China Sea. Indonesia's military chief, Admiral Yudo Margono, told state-run news agency Antara the exercise would be in September and would not include any combat operations training. The purpose, Margono said, was strengthening ASEAN centrality. ASEAN's unity has for years been tested by a rivalry between the United States and China that is being played out in the South China Sea. ASEAN members Vietnam, the Philippines, Brunei and Malaysia have competing claims with Beijing, which asserts sovereignty over vast stretches of ocean that include parts of Indonesia's exclusive economic zone. Indonesian military spokesperson Julius Widijono said the exercise was related to the high risk of disaster in Asia, especially Southeast Asia. And now time for sports update.
Sports news.
Kumultar Youth Club has been relegated to the B division. In the last round match played earlier today, they were beaten 2-0 by eventual A Division League champions Church Boys United. Ironically, Kumultar Youth Club were relegated the same season they were promoted from the B division. Kumultar had earlier threatened to walk out of the match, citing that all the matches of the relegation battling teams were not played at the same time by All Nepal Football Association. Church Boys took the lead in the 13th minute through Susil Shah, who utilized a free kick by Eric Bista. Kumultar missed the chance of equalizer in the 25th minute when Mesuka Elumi failed to convert a spot kick. Meanwhile, the match today turned heated in the injury time of the first half. as several of Kumultar officials and players from the bench tried to manhandle the referee, citing wrong decision. The match was suspended for some 30 minutes due to the disruption. When the play resumed, Church Boys scored again to seal the 2-0 victory. In the other match, Friends Club blanked APF 4-0 to avert relegation threat, while APF still remain in relegation zone. And those were our latest headlines. Up next is News in Nepali. Good night.